Why embark on CI? Because the goal is to determine how professional and optimized from an SEO standpoint the pages that we have to outrank. There are these 10 guys on page 1. How are they organized? How well do they know SEO compared to what I know? Are they making typical SEO mistakes? So we scrutinize their on-page as well as their off-page. And this is really crucial here. This will allow us to know whether spending time and energy on particular search terms is likely to be effective. This entire front section of CI is not my notes, but I want to give credit to Michael Marshall, who's a good buddy of mine and a totally respected SEO expert whom I've had the privilege of knowing. We went into business together as well. He's an excellent guy. He's the go-to guy for me in all things SEO. Unfortunately, he passed away due to a heart attack. He's in heaven as a SEO advisor to God, I guess. I have total respect for this guy because when you look at how he describes competitive intelligence, and by the way, competitive intelligence, this part especially was in the syllabus that I initially learned SEO with a guy who's so ahead of his time. As I go through this, I want you to observe how he phrases his sentences because he's very, very precise. Michael Marshall is a very unique individual because he's a mathematician, he's a linguistic expert at the same time. And it's very rare to find someone who's a mathematician and a linguistic expert. He's the kind of guy that I'll go to better understand a Google patent. And he's the kind of guy that enjoys reading white papers and patents, and after he reads those things, he is able to program solutions based on what he understands the patents to be. So he's a great loss to the SEO community. This is a brilliant insight that it's only right now and a few years ago that now we have the tool set that Michael Marshall was talking about conceptually. Now, he didn't have a solution then, but he clearly understood what this SEO game was all about. For us, we are blessed, of course, to be in a different era now where we have tool sets that allow us to do exactly what Michael Marshall wants us to do. He's telling us that time is money. Do you have a chance of dominating the SERPs for a specific keyword? If the answer is no, then there has to be an alternative reason why you're going after that keyword. Similar to wedding catering, for example. If it's competitive, it's competitive. The exception are the majority of us, where we haven't gone into wedding catering. We get to choose which niche to play in. And for those of us in that privileged position, we are going to adopt a different approach in niche selection, where we don't just choose a niche because it's lucrative. That's half of the equation. The other half is because we believe we can beat the existing competition. And with that regard, we're referring to the SEO competition because we plan to apply SEO as a primary acquisition strategy. Remember, your time, energy, attention, and money is limited. CI helps us set our priorities so that we can focus on keyword phrases where we can be successful. Also, you want to understand about CI so that you can be open to new marketing opportunities that you may not have thought of. Learning from your competitors, learning ideas when you scrutinize their entire website, their content, their topics. Learn from them and learn how to beat them at what they're doing. Also, so that you can identify threats. The guys on page 2, position 11 to 20 are as eager, if not more eager than you, to get to page 1. What do you do about these people? So that you may discover new tactics that they are using that you can leverage. Maybe they have a good idea. Maybe they have a whole series of how-to videos. And then you check their YouTube channels and they're getting a lot of traffic from YouTube as well. Learn from them. But before we get into modern CI, Michael Marshall wants us to understand what is known as old school CI and old school analysis. Algorithm chasing is one of them. Taking SEO factors in isolation is another. Relying on best practices or rule of thumb is the third. Let's learn what Michael Marshall wants us to know about the misguided approach in SEO known as algorithm chasing. This occurs when SEO pros become consumed or obsessed with the latest change in a search engine's rules for ranking, where you are so fixated about what Google is going to do next, or you're consumed with Google's direction. This frequently takes on the form of trying tricks and cheats to adapt quickly to the slightest change in the search engines in order to maintain rankings or gain higher rankings. In other words, you are taking micro steps and adjusting your strategy based on what the search engine's latest flavor of the day is. Such short-term thinking will very often cause harm in the long run, as your tactics leave your website in a very bad position when the search engine in the future makes a change that radically diverges from how you understood its algorithm. The danger of micro-interpreting what Google is doing or what Google's going to do is that Google itself is a moving target, and it's next to impossible to reverse engineer Google. This approach is also misguided because it's actually impossible to reverse engineer a search engine's algorithm. It is like the difference between a bicycle, which can be reverse engineered by taking apart its pieces and seeing how they fit together, versus a cake, which cannot be reverse engineered because the cake cannot be unbaked or picked apart to figure out the original ingredients and recipe. Once ingredients are mixed, they cannot be unmixed, as opposed to a mechanical piece of engineering like a bicycle, where you're screwing things in and you can screw things out and screw things in again. Imagine a room with 200 levers. Each lever can be positioned 0 to 10, which is the power or weightage of that lever. 200 of these levers. Imagine an engineer in Google is only in charge of at most 10 of these levers. So one engineer has the responsibility of tweaking his own 10 levers, and he's to keep secret how he tweaks and what he tweaks, so that the other engineer, who's also in charge of 10 levers, is going to tweak the levers on his own, and he's also sworn to secrecy. Now, under such situation, it is impossible to figure out, which is in the next topic called taking factors into isolation, because many of us are very simplistic in our thinking. We observe things and we jump to conclusion that there's a causation, which means if I see something move, I conclude this move because of this. Don't take SEO factors in isolation. Many professionals only look at SEO factors in isolation. For example, you may observe that the keyword density of a high-ranking competitor's copy, meaning text, to discern how you should rewrite your copy. So you're looking at this thing called keyword density, and you want to emulate a high-ranking competitor's keyword density. But he's saying, look here, but the value may not be wise to emulate, because despite their high ranking, their keyword density value of their copy is actually not optimal. And their good and strong off-page factors, PageRank and other off-page factors, are compensating for a less than optimal copy keyword density value. It's very dangerous to observe and to make conclusion that everything that the top guy is doing is correct. Over time, as you gain more experience, you will realize this. There is a reason why they are on page 1, number 1. It may not be because they are strong on page and off page. A website that is very, very strong off page very often can leapfrog over a web page with very strong content but weak off page, because it's all about weightage. And we don't know the actual weightage of off page factors at this moment in time. It's not worth knowing, because the levers can be switched and changed in combination at any one time. It's a moving target, and that's why the search engines cannot be reverse engineered. So it is a proper and optimal balance between the various important SEO factors that make for a highly competitive page. There are many factors that results in this particular page being on page 1, number 1. It may not be what you think it is. To overlook this fact may cause you to erroneously emulate the wrong features of a higher rank competitor, or to emulate the correct features in the wrong way. Best practices, he says, throughout the internet you will find many blogs, forums, and websites related to SEO that provide some list of best practices for optimizing your pages. You see, when it comes to guidelines for avoiding penalties, these lists are usually very helpful in terms of what not to do, like avoid keyword stuffing, don't use 302 redirect, don't use cloaking, don't use invisible text, and so on and so on. But when it comes to guidelines for making improvements to the page, they are not always helpful. You will often find guidelines and rule of thumbs like keep your copy keyword density between 2 to 4% in Google, keep your title tag count between 9 and 6 words in Yahoo, and so on and so forth. Look here, all such recommendations are usually based on the experience of the writer, and that experience is limited to the key phrase they have worked with, often spanning several industries or sometimes only one industry. And it will often be the case that the keyword phrases that they work with do not contain your important key phrases, and they may not even be related to your key phrase. Just as important is the underlying assumption on which such recommendations rely. There is an assumption that whatever pattern, usually based on taking averages from an aggregation of measurements they think they have discovered, can be effectively applied universally across all key phrases for a search engine. This only makes sense if the search engines grade on an absolute scale. We will point out later why this is not the case. When you are applying CI, competitor analysis, it is going to be on a key phrase basis or keyword basis. You cannot apply the findings of a specific analysis for one keyword and apply it on another keyword, because the competitive landscape is different for one and the other. Do not transfer your findings when you do analysis and treat it as application, because that's not how the search engines work. The search engines grade on a relative scale, not an absolute scale. What is new school competitive intelligence? Number one, please understand it is keyword phrase driven SEO guidelines. Number two, it is relative grading by the search engines, why and how they pick the best of the lot, grading on a scale. And number three, multivariate analysis, the influence that SEO factors have on each other. Let's take it one by one. Key phrase driven guidelines. What do we mean by keyword phrase driven guidelines? It simply means you have to repeat the CI analysis for every keyword that you plan on analyzing. You have to do the analysis individually. Keyword 1 first, analyze the result, take the findings, proceed to keyword 2, and proceed to keyword 3. You cannot do a single analysis and apply it universally across all keywords, because every keyword has their own individual competitive landscape. That brings me to point number 2, which is relative grading. Imagine a class, and the class of students are competing, and let's call this keyword A. We have another class, which is keyword B, with a group of students competing there as well, and we have a class keyword C. We also have the school, and the school has 3 classes. The school is Google. And what we're saying, a lot of people mistakenly think that just because Google applies algorithm updates like Panda, Penguin, uniformly across the entire school, that when it comes to competitive landscape, then everybody is referencing the school rules. It's natural to think this way, but when it comes to the SERPs, the reality is that every class has their own SERPs. The class A are fighting for SERP 1 results, class B fighting for SERP 2, class C fighting for SERP 3 results. In other words, they are all independent of each other. What it simply means, if you are intending to target keyword A, you do your competitive analysis in keyword A. The competitors in keyword B and C have no bearing at all, 0. Relative grading means the grading is at the classroom level, not at the school level. So this is important as a fundamental doctrine for competitive intelligence. Taking this example, you may be saying, is it possible that if I am last in class for keyword A, I apply the same effort, I could be first in class in keyword B? Answer is yes, of course, because different set of competitors. Like in Asia, I believe, and in many parts of the world, at least many years back, or maybe now even, the A class comprised of the top 30 students, the B class is comprised of the next best 30 students, and the C class would be the final batch of 30 students. Assuming the school has 90 students, the top 30 go to A, next 30 go to B, and the final 30 go to C. So obviously, if you were an average guy, meaning that you were literally at position number 45, if you went to class A, you would be last in class because you are number 45 and the top 30 brightest go to class A. Whereas you would be in the middle of the curve if you went to class B, that's probably where you'll be. But if you want to be a hero, then ask to be posted to the class C, because then you will outperform in class C because you're position 45 and the students there are all between 60 to 90. Then you become the king of your jungle itself. Everything else being equal, you shouldn't target keywords where the probability of you getting to page 1 number 1 is weak. You're better off choosing a weaker keyword with a weaker competitive landscape and investing your time there, because in SEO, it is all or nothing. In other words, if you do not get to page 1, your reward for the keyword is extremely minimal. There's hardly much consolation if the only purpose of why you add a keyword is to benefit from organic traffic. So there you go. It's relative grading, ladies and gentlemen, not absolute grading. If it's absolute, it means it's applied throughout the school rules. But when it comes to competitive intelligence, the search engines and how they work, it's relative grading, which means you choose the keyword you want to target, they will pick from the best of the lot. And the best of the lot is a very, very important concept, ladies and gentlemen, because best of the lot simply means if you position yourself in a very, very weak environment, you automatically become the best of the lot. If you position yourself among the best of the best and you're not up to it, you become the worst of the lot. Do you want to be the best of the lot or the worst of the lot? You choose. We call this pick your poison. So what drives competitive intelligence? Well, competitive intelligence analysis for SEO is key phrase driven. Since the basis of any SEO strategy involves around keywords, the analysis must start there as well.